Well, he's a pro. You've probably done more
I,
than I have.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, I've done a few. So,
I love it. Hey, friends, welcome to the Johnson City Living Podcast, where we learn about the people, places, events, and flavors that make Johnson City a lovely place to live. It is a beautiful May spring day here in Johnson City. I'm hanging out with Dr. Richard Sander. He is Executive Director for the Center for Global Leadership, Sports Leadership, and Assistant to the President, Brian Nolan of ETSU. Thank you for coming in, Dr. Sander. It's great to see you again.
good seeing you. It's always enjoyable to have a chance to visit.
Yeah, it really is. I always, every time we've been together a few times, and every time I always walk away going, I really enjoyed our time together. I like that guy a lot. So no
Well,
wonder you're successful because everywhere you go, I feel like you leave people in a better spot.
I try.
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the things I've been very blessed in my life to be able to do a lot of things that were good for me and my family. So I think if you can give back a little bit and help other people, then you really ought to do it. So
Yeah. And
in my time and stage in my life right now, that's kind of what I'm focused on.
yeah, yeah. So Johnson City Living Podcast, you live here. Tell me some of your favorite things about Johnson City in the area.
Well, I love ETSU. I think ETSU brings so much to a community whenever you have a university that can be kind of the focal point for a lot of activities, whether it be athletics or cultural or educational or whatever. I think that brings so much to the dance. And I think, with the Martin Center initiative that, President Nolan was so committed to make a reality to see some of the things that are happening there. And then, the football stadium we built. And,
Hmm.
clearly, basketball has been successful in all our sports. So, I think that's a neat part of it. But I just think the people in general, I think, this is such a nice community to live in. I think life is relatively uncomplicated compared to a lot of places that you live, and you can have anything that you want. I think, um, there's really nothing lacking here in Johnson City. So I enjoy it. I'm from Cincinnati originally, pretty big city.
Hmm.
Worked in Memphis for 5 years, and then the majority of my career was in Richmond, Virginia. So having a chance to be here and a little bit different, quality of life situation is really nice.
Hmm.
So I really enjoy it. But like I said, I think what makes any community are the people, and I think the people here are very friendly and giving, and they really do a good job of uh, making people feel good about this community.
Yeah, I think we hear over and over and over that's the people here that make it awesome. The mountains are beautiful. ETSU is fantastic. We've got 4 great seasons, but it comes down to the people, right? And so,
Sure does.
what do you feel like from an outsider coming in? What do you feel like makes us that way? You think? Have you been able to pick up on some of the reasons?
Um, I just think people are real here. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of airs. There's not a lot of phoniness. I don't
Right.
think people are trying to convince anything of anybody. I think people are relatively tolerant here and
Hmm.
very, very willing to um, embrace new people when they come into the community, to be perfectly honest. And when we moved to Richmond from Memphis, and I was athletic director at Virginia Commonwealth University in 1986, it was a little bit different from that. I think there were a lot of Virginia blue blood type mentality, and if you know anything about VCU is kind of the university for the common person.
Gotcha.
It's like 25,000 students, but a lot of them are night students, a lot of them are working, a lot of kids are have part-time jobs doing that. So it doesn't have a real affluent student body. And so I think that compared to the University of Richmond, which is probably just the opposite, small private with a lot of kids coming from the Northeast down there, University of Virginia, which is 40, 50 miles away, William and Mary, those are all prestigious universities that I think, there's a little bit of an air about that. And
Hmm.
so compared to then being here where people were so willing to embrace and get to know you, and just it's not about where you came from, but it's just kind of how you are and how you deal with people. So I think, that's been the one thing that I think is really kind of a differentiator. And of course, in Memphis is such a big city.
Hmm.
And so it's not nearly as easy to get engaged there as it is in Johnson City. So I really have enjoyed that. And I think, that's one of the things that, makes life very rewarding here.
I agree. I agree. It's yeah, it's just a great place to live and grow up, and I feel blessed. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about the Doc Sanders story.
Yeah. I grew up in Cincinnati, born and raised,
Okay.
and so, probably, kind of just a pretty normal life.
Was your
Yeah.
dad an athletic director?
No, no, my dad was a very hardworking guy who basically worked for the telephone company. Started out climbing poles and
Oh
doing that
yeah,
sort of stuff, and
lineman.
then
Yeah.
eventually got into sales. But I think really gave me a real introduction to what the value of hard work
Mm.
and really being focused on what you want to do and that you can accomplish anything that you want to. So, I was very involved in sports. That's kind of what I did. And I probably played in probably the most aggressive youth football program in the country. When I was in the sixth grade, we played in the Cotton Bowl, and
Oh wow.
I think our record was 18-0, and we allowed one touchdown all year. So it was very, very aggressive. The coach was
Yeah.
very aggressive. Don't know how that would sell in today's world, but all the kids on the team loved them, and it was just really unique. And then continued to play, throughout throughout grade school and high school. Actually, I went to Chattanooga on a football scholarship, so that's what I did. I was a quarterback and
Okay.
got
Nice.
there, and they decided pretty quick that I think, they always recruit a bunch of freshman quarterbacks, and so I think I was the number 5 on the depth chart of the 5 freshman quarterbacks. So they moved me to defensive back. So I was playing a little defensive back, and then after the season, the basketball coach said, "Hey, I heard you played basketball in high school. You want to practice with us?" And I said, "Yeah." So I did, and then I switched my scholarship to basketball. So I played
Wow.
basketball at Chattanooga for 3 years.
You're a pretty strong athlete if you could
Well,
just switch from football to basketball.
yeah, and I had a pretty good career there. So I think when I left, I was their all-time leading scorer. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Went in the Army for 2 years. This was 1968 when I got out.
Hmm.
So I was commissioned to lieutenant and was a signal corps officer. Went in the Army for 2 years.
Thank you
Um,
for that. Yeah.
yeah, so that was a wonderful experience. I actually got hurt playing basketball in the Army and had to have 2 surgeries on my elbow, and I had. Well, I mean, I guess that was a mixed blessing. I had gotten orders to go to Vietnam, but I was in convalescing from elbow surgery,
Oh
so I
wow.
couldn't go. But I was a signal officer and got out, and then I got. It's funny because then I got hurt. I couldn't play, so they made me the coach, and that kind of changed my path of
Uh-huh.
what I was going to do. Really didn't have any
So that's how you got into coaching.
yeah,
It
so
was in the Army.
I didn't have any aspirations to do that. But once I started coaching the post team in the Army, that's kind of what I decided I wanted to do. And then I got out of the Army in 1970. Had a Les was my daughter was like 3 weeks old and didn't have a job, so that was a little scary. And
Yeah.
then my college coach called me and said, "Hey, they're looking for somebody to coach basketball and teach math at Howard High School in Chattanooga." And so I called, and this was like August 27th. I got out. School started like 30th,
Yeah, really,
and
right around the
so I
next
drove
day.
drove to Chattanooga, and I didn't have a teaching certificate or anything, but they had an emergency hire, so that's what I did. And I don't know how familiar you are with Chattanooga, but at that time Howard High School was an all-black high school, and so I was the only white teacher in an all-black high school. So I don't know if you remember the TV show The White Shadow. I was the original White Shadow. So it was a great experience. I had an opportunity to really get to know some great people
That's
and work
awesome.
with some neat kids and
Yeah.
look at things from a completely different perspective than what
Sure.
I grew up from. And so it really was an eye-opening experience for me. And
And that was 1970.
1970, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I did that for a year, and then I went back and got my master. I worked on my master's degree and coached at UTC at Chattanooga,
Yep.
and so I did that for a year, and then I went back to Cincinnati, and I was a high school coach in Cincinnati for 10 years,
Ah,
basketball. So I coached when I took the job. I think it was the biggest. I was only what, 25, 26. So it was the biggest high school in Ohio, I think,
oh wow.
and it was a very upper class. So it was completely different going from Howard, which was right there in the projects,
Hmm.
to um, Anderson High School in Cincinnati, which was an all-white high school that a pretty affluent community,
Hmm.
a neighbor, a bedroom community for Cincinnati, where a lot of the kids' parents worked at Procter and Gamble or one of the major corporations there. So yeah, so pretty different
Yeah, big change
experience.
for you.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I eventually got my doctorate at the University of Cincinnati. I did it while I was coaching and teaching, and so I teach, coach, and then get in my car, drive over to University of Cincinnati at night and take classes or Saturday morning. So eventually
How many
got
children did you have
we
then?
have two. Well, when I left the army, I had one, and then my son was born in 1974. So
Okay.
while I was doing that, I started my doctoral studies in 77. So yeah, my wife is a saint, you know what I mean? She
Yeah,
she
for real.
basically raised the two kids by herself. She'd bring the kids up to practice when we were practicing. They'd sit on the
Oh,
gym floor, and yeah, so that was a big part of it. Then eventually I had an opportunity to go to Memphis. It was Memphis State then, to help develop.
that's where my
Yeah,
parents went to college.
yeah,
They
so
met there.
yeah,
So
so
yeah.
went there, and
What year was that?
that was 1981 or 82, and
Is
so
that the Penny Hardaway?
no, no, it was a group. We went to Final Four in '85, and it
Yep.
was Keith Lee, William
Yes.
Bedford,
Yeah. Oh,
Andre Turner, Vincent
uh-huh.
Askew, Doom Haynes. So
We used
that
to
was
I
that
watched
team.
those guys play.
Yeah,
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 my dad was obviously a huge fan,
yeah,
and so we watched a lot of games.
yeah. So that was a great experience being at Memphis, and it was kind of neat because um, the guy who was the AD there was a guy named Charlie Cavanero, and Charlie didn't come up from an athletic background. He was a media guy, and so it was kind of cool. He let me do a lot of stuff that, with coaches and just programmatically do things. So that was a great experience. And in 1986, I was fortunate enough to get the job as athletic director at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. So
So you went
I took,
back to where,
yeah, so
yeah.
then I went to Richmond, and 22 years as AD there, and so that's kind of the story. So I've been very fortunate and had a lot of people
And then
help
when did
me.
you come to ETSU to be athletic
Well,
director?
I'd retired at VCU in 2000, what, 9, 10, something like that. And I wasn't doing much. I was just kind of hanging out, playing some golf, doing a little consulting. President Nolan, I guess, had just gotten the job here, maybe in the beginning of 12, maybe. And so he had created this strategic planning group called the Committee for 125, and so they started to look at athletics. And I think because of all the success we had at VCU, and particularly all the success we had in men's basketball, they called me and asked me if I'd come up and look at the program and kind of share thoughts and whatever.
Yeah.
So I did that a couple times, and then one of the times, when I was there, President Nolan said, "Hey," he actually said, "I'm gonna." Dave Mullins was the AD. He said Dave's getting ready to retire. He said, "What do you think?" He said, "Do you think I should hire somebody right now, or do you think I should wait?" And it was like in December. And I said, "Well, I'd wait till after basketball season's over. I think, the pool of candidates will be better after
Right.
basketball season." And he said, "Okay." He said, "Well," he said, "I don't have anybody I feel comfortable with putting in an interim position." He said, "Do you know anybody who would do that on an interim basis?" And I said, "Well, let me think about that," because I knew some guys who had just retired who might do it. And then before I could even say much more, he said, "Would you do it?" And I said, "Let me talk to my wife."
There
So
you
I
go.
did. And she said, "Yeah, you'll enjoy doing that. Go up there for a couple months." And literally, so I started like January 4th, 5th, or whatever. And literally the third day I was here, Brian said to me, he said, "Hey, I've decided I'm going to restart football. Can you help me restart football?" So
Mm-hmm.
when I said, yeah, I knew that wasn't, a two
That's a
month
long,
deal.
yeah,
So
long
kind of,
term project.
yeah. So I stayed here and, we got football going. I mean, it was pretty interesting. We had nothing. We had no plan. We had no anything. And we didn't have a football even.
And you
So,
had some. I mean, probably there were a lot of people that were not in support of that.
right. I think there was there was some reluctance for people. They just see this as a pretty big expense and money can be used better and so on and
Yes.
so forth. I think Brian really felt that, the student life experience was really important. And
Hmm.
football was really
It
important for
does
that.
cause synergy, right?
Right,
I mean,
right. And
yeah.
I think, the community would rally around it if we
Hmm.
did it the right way.
Yes.
Um, and so that was kind of a major a major criteria that we had to do this the right way. We just couldn't afford to have any real negative things that sometimes are associated with football. And we put together, a funding scheme and a financial model that would work. That wouldn't drain all the resources from
Right.
our other programs. So
Sure.
that was important. We really realized that having an on-campus stadium was a critical piece of it
Yes.
because I guess one of the when they dropped football, one of the negatives was the dome. I guess it
Hmm.
wasn't a very good place to watch
Yeah, I
football.
watched it there, and
And
the guys would run along the
sidelines
sideline, and
and
you couldn't see if
see,
they
yeah,
caught the ball or
right,
tackled or what.
yeah, and I just think
We just needed 12 more feet on each
yeah. Well,
side.
I think originally it was planned that way, and then they had some financial issues, and they
They
kind of
scooted a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah,
they
we'll just make it.
didn't think about sidelines. But yeah, so then we and the reality of it is the weather's really beautiful in the fall in Northeast Tennessee. So why wouldn't you want an outdoor
Sure.
stadium?
Yeah.
And we
Gets a
worked.
little chilly in November,
Yeah, well,
but
but
that's all right.
that's kind of football
Yeah.
weather, and so we wanted to do something, and one of the so we hired Carl Torbush. We knew Carl was a very had very strong values and would only recruit certain type kids. That was
Right.
really important to us. And Carl was a great ambassador for the program. Carl could talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And so we hired Carl. We said, hey, Carl, for the first year, we really didn't have a team. And we just wanted Carl to get out and be an ambassador for what we were doing. And we said, okay, we want you to have 200 different engagements, during the course of the year. Well, we kept track. I think Carl had 228 the first year. So that kind of
Wow.
tells you. But he loves doing that. He loved
Right.
talking to people. And
Yeah.
that was great. And then he recruited good kids. And then we were able to build the stadium. And I think it's a
Stadium's
beautiful
beautiful.
stage. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really love it. And the site is
Anytime
really
you're
nice.
coming to town, people come check it out. It's fun.
Yeah, it is. And so it all went pretty well. So, did that. And, we, I hired Coach Forbes, we had to
Hmm.
make a change in basketball. And, Murray Bartow was a really good man, really good person.
Oh
But,
yeah.
the program was kind of stuck in the mud and just really didn't have any energy or not much enthusiasm. So hired Coach Forbes and he came in and really got the thing rolling. And, I think people were excited and we had some good things. And then kind of thought, um, it was time for somebody else to kind of, take over. I'd done it long enough, and I thought we had gotten to a pretty stable position. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
talked to President Nolan and said, "Hey, I think time." And he said, "Well, we want you to stick around." And additionally, I guess maybe 6 years ago, I had an idea of a concept of building a doctoral program in what we call global sports leadership. And so what we wanted to do is identify best practices worldwide of leadership in the area of sports. So that's what we did. And so Dr. Nolan was clearly an advocate for us doing that. So we were able to start that program. It's a little different than most programs at ETSU because there's no funding for it from the university or the state. We basically generate the revenue through tuition revenue and basically have a revenue sharing deal with the university. And right now we have about 50 students. Actually, the classes right now, we have three cohorts. Every year there's a new cohort. We have somewhere between 16 and 18 in a cohort. And right now we have 32 students who right now are in Lausanne, Switzerland at the International Olympic Committee Museum.
Oh,
So
wow.
every year the classes go on an international trip, get to see how sport affects culture and culture affects sport. So they flew into Munich, spent 3 days in Munich, got to go to a basketball game. I think Bayern Munich. They go to soccer games. One year we went to Barcelona,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
and they got to see Barcelona play with Messi playing
Mm,
one of his last games,
yeah.
and so yeah, and we went to Taiwan and Japan one year. So yeah, it's pretty cool
Tell me,
experience.
tell me about a student. Like, just I've got kids,
Hmm.
and one's a freshman at UT, and one's going to be coming up. And
Hmm.
so, what is if a student were to enroll in your program? What's kind of their future? What are they looking
Yeah,
to do? What do they want to grow? And
well,
how to,
our program is would be more.
you turning out athletic directors or
Yeah,
coaches or
both. So, I mean, our students would be more comparable to an executive MBA.
okay,
So, most of the people in our program are working in the world of sports
gotcha.
somewhere in the world. We have students, and it's online except for the international travel classes. So, we've had students from Taiwan, Bahamas, Guam, a couple other international places. And so, yeah, some could be coaches, some could be athletic administrators. We have people who maybe I think we've had two that are like uh, the executive director of a high school athletics association. I think we have one guy from Minnesota. I think we
Oh,
have
cool.
another one from New Mexico. So that may be something we may have. We have one person that works for the NBA. We have somebody who works in NASCAR, who is the marketing director for NASCAR,
Oh,
or they
nice.
were. Yeah. And yeah, so and then we have coaches, who do it. We may have a high school coach. We may have we have athletic directors. I think we probably had 5 or 6 athletic directors, some from Division 2, Division 3. Um,
That's cool.
yeah, so it's and one of the things it does, it really helps people build a network of individuals who can help them in their careers. So that's been
Like a
really
good
good.
networking.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is. And then the other thing that we do kind of in conjunction with that is I have a program called Top Connect, and it kind of goes back to maybe 2003 when I was at VCU. I had hired Jeff Capel to be our head coach, and Jeff was only 27 years old, and I hired him to be our coach. And so I thought I'd have him for a while, and then the first year he was there, we were successful, and so Auburn called him, Miami called him about interviewing for their jobs. I said, oh my goodness, here I am, a mid-major athletic director, and I thought Jeff would be here for a while, but he's not going to be here for a while, I don't think. So I need to figure out a way to connect with, the next generation of guys who could basically be our head basketball coach. And
Kind of
those,
building a bench.
right. And so these people that we would hire would probably be the top assistants at the preeminent programs in the country, like Ohio State or Tennessee or Florida
Hmm.
or UCLA or Kansas, wherever. So what I did is I kind of said, okay, I never have a chance to meet those people because where I am, I need to figure out a way to do that. So what I did, I created this initiative that was called at that time, it was called Villa 7, where I'd bring like 15 to 17 mid-major ADs together and we would talk about our issues, and then that night we would have a function we'd invite like the top 25 or 30 assistant coaches in the country. So guys like Buzz Williams, who's now the coach at
Hmm.
Texas A&M. Um, who else was there? Um, Mike Roberts, who's coach at Washington. John Gross, who was the coach at Illinois, is now the coach at Akron. Um,
Just high level
Yeah,
talent.
Craig Neal, who was a coach at New Mexico. I mean, who got those jobs later on. So we wanted to try to connect those people with one another, and so we did that. And so now that's kind of evolved into something we call Top Connect. So
That's cool.
yeah, so we
That's a
do
good
that
thought.
now. So next month, for example, we'll have a symposium where I'll probably have 100 of those top assistant basketball coaches in the country come together, and they'll engage with athletic directors and senior associate athletic directors. We'll have panels. I mean,
I was going
uh,
to ask you, how do you go and find a coach? What's that process like, right? Because there are a lot of opportunities out
hmm
there.
hmm
As an athletic, you hired a new basketball coach
right.
last year
hmm
and a new football coach. That was a busy year.
Yep.
So how do you? What's that process for the listeners and for everybody out there?
Yeah.
What's that like? I mean, because I'm just going. I don't know. I mean, I guess you'd start with your top connect group, and
Yeah. Yeah. Really. For me, I mean, I, I mean, I can say I probably don't do it like most other people do it.
well, yeah. I mean, you're
Because
successful though.
yeah. So I feel good. If I hired people like Capel and Anthony Grant,
Mhm.
it was really good. And then,
Forbes did okay
yeah,
here.
Forbes did good. Shaka Smart, so those are
Yeah,
names I think you
yeah.
probably recognize. So those are all really good guys. And I think for me, because we've been able to do this program, Bill 7 and Top Connect, have a pretty good idea of the top people, but also because kind of there are people in the inner circle of college basketball who really knows what's going on. So for example, the way I hired Steve was, I called Buzz Williams, who's Texas A&M. I think Buzz was at Virginia Tech then. Called Shaka. You know, called Anthony Grant. Called Capel. Called a guy named Rick Boyages, who's the associate commissioner of the Big Ten for
Mhm.
basketball, Doug Elgin, who was commissioner of the Missouri Valley, and just talked to those guys who are the best people out there. You know what I mean? You kind of get to know.
And do you have like a wish list, like
I don't.
character,
I don't.
winning?
I
Like
don't.
yeah.
I just, I just,
What are important things for you to look at?
well, I mean, when I hired, every situation is a little bit different. You
Sure.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here, we needed somebody to come in with a lot of energy, who had
Mhm.
a lot of contacts, who could fit well in the community. It's a funny story about Steve. We never interviewed anybody else for that job. I just, when talked to President Nolan, he said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "We're going to hire Steve Forbes." You know what I mean? And so
He said,
he said,
okay.
"Okay, who's Steve Forbes?" So I
Right.
told him, and so we called Forbes, and he was at Wichita. So
Is Brian involved in a lot of these decisions,
yeah, yeah. I
like
mean,
heavily, or just because it sounded like you were like, we're just going to hire Brian, we're going to
yeah,
hire
well,
Steve and we're
yeah. I
going to be good
mean,
to go.
when I was doing it, it's just me and him talking. You know what
Right.
I mean? And he's very interested. He's a wonderful
Oh, he loves
leader.
the sport.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is, and we talk.
And I
You
see
know
him at
what I
the
mean?
games all the time.
Right. And
He's big time.
we just talk, and say this is what we're going to do. And he said, okay, and we'll talk about some things. You know what I mean? What we're looking for. And with Steve, we were looking for somebody that could come in and excite the community. We knew he could recruit. I liked, Steve had been a head coach before. I thought that was important at the
Mm-hmm.
junior college level. And so I kind of knew that the environment of college basketball was changing dramatically, with you could kind of just see where it was going. So we needed somebody. I mean, just to be honest, we knew we were going to have to recruit transfers. We knew we were
Mm-hmm.
going to have to recruit JUCO kids and some freshmen. So we were going to have somebody that could kind of blend all those things together really quickly. And Steve's background was a junior college coach. That's what they do. They get kids to play together really quickly.
Yeah.
Plus, high energy guy. We knew he
Mm-hmm.
could recruit everybody, and he had tremendous relationships
Yeah.
across the country. And so when I talked to Anthony Grant and Shaka and as they said, you know, Steve Forbes would be the right guy for you. And I said, okay. And we'd talk and they'd tell me about him. And, the one thing that people don't understand about Steve Forbes is, because he's kind of a personality character type guy, he is the most organized person you've ever met in your life. Everything is done with a plan, with a rationale. And I think that's really important. So for me, that's one of the things that I always look for in a coach, that they have a plan, they have an idea of how to implement that plan, and they have a big picture idea of how to cover all the areas. And so, that was Forbes,
Yeah.
he basically had all those sort of things. Plus, it's funny. So we fly, Brian, Dr. Nolan is in DC at a meeting, and I'm here in Johnson City. Wichita is still playing in the NCAA tournament. So so we say, okay, we're going to fly up to Wichita and and meet with Coach Forbes. So we go up there, and Brian flies in from DC. I fly in from Johnson City. We go up there. We watch Wichita practice, and then Coach Forbes and Dr. Nolan, they go to dinner. So we're sitting there at dinner, and we're just talking. It's just kind of like a conversation like this. It's really not much of an interview. It's just a conversation. And so, after about an hour and a half there, Steve gets up, excuses himself, goes to the restroom. And so I say to President Nolan, I said, well, what do you think? He said, well, he's not very corporate. And I said, yeah, I know, that was so great in Johnson City. So we laugh about that all the time. And
Yes, we're not very corporate here.
yeah, so Steve, and then Steve, we laugh. He said, like he knew, President Nolan and I were coming up there. He said, like for a day and a half, he did all these mock interviews and everything. He said, I got there, it wasn't even an interview. It was just like going out to dinner with some friends. You know what I mean? So yeah, so we got that deal done, and they continued to play. Wichita continued to play for a while, and then he came in, and So yeah, for me, it's more about that. I mean, I have a lot of people that I trust. It's a very close inner circle of people I
Gotcha.
really trust who I think you'll get the real information from those people. And
Yeah.
I mean, in today's world, most people will form search committees and
Hmm.
that sort of thing. I've never been an advocate for that because if the person doesn't do a good job, the search committee's gone and it's going to be
Right, left on your shoulders.
left on
Yeah.
my shoulders,
Then
you know what I
Scott
mean?
Carter got to deal with
And
it.
that's right. So, and then we've got to, the coach and I have to interact. We have to have a relationship. The committee doesn't have to have a relationship. You know
Right.
what I
They're
mean?
out the door. Yeah.
So that's why,
That's a good
I've
thought.
kind of done it, that way. And that's probably very uncommon, but it's worked for me. And
Yeah.
fortunately, both at BCU and ETSU, they've allowed me to do that. And we've got some pretty good results.
Yeah. Yeah. We're excited to see what Desmond can do this coming year. And
Yeah,
I think,
Ded's a good guy. I think he is. He came into a tough situation, and
yeah, I'd love to
has
have him on here. I'm
yeah,
sure our listeners would love to
yeah,
talk to him as well too.
we'll get him on. He's
Yeah,
great.
he's got
He's great.
nothing to do this summer. So, talking about leadership and coaching and all that stuff, what's one piece of advice that you could pass on to our listeners that you've learned over the years that you're like, man, this is gold?
Well, I think the most important thing with anything is you have to build trust. With if you're a coach, if you're in any kind of management position, you have to build trust within your folks who are
Hmm.
within your group. And I think you do that by being honest and you be competent. I think you have to model what you expect. I think people have to look at you and realize that you work hard, that you're competent, that you get things done. And I think you have to have victories. I think people have to feel good about what they're doing and successes. So I think all that kind of comes in with that trust thing. So if you don't have trust because you're not honest or you're not competent, it's going to be tough to be successful. So that would be what I would think. I see some people who want to try to what would be the word? And frame every situation, and it's
Dance
not.
around it a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's not exactly the way it really
Uh
is.
huh.
You know what I mean? And first of all, I'm not smart enough to do that. Second of all, I don't think it really. I think let's deal with it. Let's deal with all the issues right now.
Yeah,
Let's
for
go,
sure.
man. If there's a problem, let's do it. Let's get it out. Let's be straightforward with it. We're not going to cover it up. We're not going to try
Right.
to
Let's just deal with it and
let's
move
deal with
forward.
it right now and
Yeah.
get on. Because that way it won't linger. It won't create more and more
Fester. Yeah.
situations down the road. We'll deal with it right now. So
Good
yeah.
advice. Yeah.
So yeah. So
Trust.
I mean, I think that directness is important, and sometimes I think leaders fearful of that they think people may not like them or whatever. I mean, just do the right thing.
That's right. Yeah.
Do
It's
the right
not hard,
thing.
right?
You know.
It's the choices. We make choices all the
Yep.
time, all the time. What do you see in the future for ETSU's athletic department? And,
Yeah. I mean, this is a very um, Well, to be perfectly honest, I think college athletics is in turmoil right now. So, I mean, I think it's a really tough time. I think
What do you
school.
talk more about the turmoil? What do you feel
Well, I
like
mean, I
what's going
think,
on?
with what's happened in the NCAA, the two things that have been that have really caused, a tremendous um, change in college athletics are, NIL, name, image, and likeness. Players can basically be paid,
Gotcha.
so that's problematic. I don't know if it's problematic, but it's a huge
It's
change.
definitely different.
And then the other thing is, the transfer portal or one-time transfer. Uh, Opportunity. And so I think because the NCAA wasn't smart enough to, if they were going to do it, they probably should have done them both at the same time. Because now what you've done is you've basically created pay for play and, free market, free agency in college athletics. So, these universities, like an ETSU, that compared to Power Fives and,
We
you
just
know,
can't compete
right, they're under resourced. ETSU's
financially.
athletic budget maybe, and I don't know because I don't do it on a daily basis, maybe $18 million. You know, Tennessee's is probably $200 million. You
A
know
little
what I
different.
mean? Plus, Tennessee. Tennessee's big in NIL. You know what I mean? They've got a collective, and supposedly, they got $25 million basically to influence kids to go to Tennessee and play. To play. So therefore, kids that are at other universities say, I can go to Tennessee and get paid. I mean, I've heard numbers. I'm not going to say what they are,
Yeah.
but they
But I could make a
it's
couple
a
$1 million playing
yeah.
there
I mean, it's just like the
as
mess,
a coming out of high school.
right? I mean,
you know?
it's like the mess that happened in Miami of Florida. I guess they got to transfer the guy who is what is it, Life Wallet. He basically paid this kid transfer from Kansas State $800,000 in a car, and so one of the kids that was on the team, and they were a good team last year, who went to the final eight. He said, "Whoa, wait a second, um, I need some of that money. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm a good player who has been here. We, I need,
Uh
if
huh.
this guy's making 800,000, who's never done anything for here, I need something here. You know
Sure.
what I mean? And
Yeah. Then you start
and
getting into
yeah, and then you just start getting into paying players. And basically, you know, name, image, and likeness. So supposedly,
what was the thought process behind that for the
well, you got,
NCAA?
man, you got all the talking heads. You got Jay Bill saying all these poor players, that they, the universities
It's
are
4
using them.
years before they make millions in the
Right,
NBA.
right.
Like that's kind of the
Yeah, I mean, and I think the reality of what, it's really funny the way things have changed. 10 years ago, kind of the mentality on campus was, oh, these athletes, they're spoiled. They're on full scholarship. They don't have to work. All these kids have to work. They have to do this. They have to do that. And these athletes get everything. Okay, that was probably a fairly common mentality on
right
campus. Today, it's like,
stereotype.
oh, these players don't get enough. You know what I mean? They're on full scholarship. They get Pell. They get cost of attendance. They get this academic support money that's $6,000. So, and now they can get NIL. So, I mean, you got kids making, the Alabama quarterback back makes $1.5 million. The Ohio State quarterback makes $1.4 million before he ever threw a pass. You know what I mean?
That's
Yeah, it
crazy.
is.
Yeah.
But, so I think you got, the talking heads, all these kids, these universities are making millions of dollars. And the NCAA kind of did it to themselves because when you're
Sure.
paying coaches $9 million, it's pretty hard to justify. I mean, it's an easy um, argument for the people that want to get that through. Well,
Sure.
this poor kid, he's working hard. He gets a
He's the one making
scholarship,
the coach
right? And
nine
the
million
coach making
dollars.
nine
Right.
million dollars. Plus, you're building these, $500 million football stadiums and
Right. You've got
doing
a
all
huge
these different things.
company, and all the
Right,
employees aren't getting paid.
right. So that's kind of the mentality. But the reality of it is, you know, if you looked at the value of what these kids are getting, you know what I mean? I
Right.
saw something 5 years ago that the average value of, I forget what school it was, Wisconsin or somewhere. The average value is like $112,000 a year. When
Like
you
a
throw,
full
right, I
scholarship,
mean, it's
and
full
then you got
scholarship,
housing and
but you get
food and
housing,
everything.
food, and the travel that you get,
Yeah.
and all the strength and conditioning. benefits that you get, all the health care that you get, all that sort of
Plus all
stuff.
the
When you add it all,
connections you're
yeah,
making through the
right,
university for
yeah,
later on.
yeah. So, so that never really comes out much, you know what I mean? That,
Yeah.
you don't have to pay for anything. You're not paying any taxes on anything, you
Right.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you're generating for yourself pretty, I
Pretty
mean,
significant.
value.
Yeah. If you
People
had to
for,
pay taxes on that, that's
yeah,
150 easily.
yeah.
Yeah.
So people never think about value. They just, and I think these kids are getting tremendous value. And you look at guys like Zion Williamson who went to Duke. You know what I mean? When he came out of high school, his value was X. Well, he goes to Duke and he's on TV every game, and his value was
Through the
so
roof.
through the roof, and it was because of his ability to go to Duke and get all that exposure,
Mhm.
but nobody wants to give any value to that. If you had to pay to build your brand like that, what would that cost? You know
Oh,
what I mean?
big money.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's where college athletics is going. So that's kind of a long answer to a pretty short question, but I think for ETSU, that is
One of our struggles now.
yeah, so it's problematic. And what's going on with the NCAA, I mean, are you going to have this major bifurcated system where you're going to have all the elite, programs, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, UCLA, that are spending $200 million, and then, you have these other guys down here that can't really throw those kind of
Yeah.
dollars at this. So, when will that group that is investing so much and spending so much money on it, when will they say, wait a second, what are we doing? We need to manage ourselves. We need to have our own. And that's kind of where it's headed, I
Yeah, I would
think.
think. Yeah, if I was
And,
already thinking about hearing conversations about, what's the NCAA actually provide at that
right.
point, and so
Yeah. And I think, the reality of it is, I think football is the driving
mhm.
force for, because the money's just so big, with football. And I don't think the thing will totally end. I think the basketball tournament is so valuable
Mhm.
that I think football may be eventually just go out on their own. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
the NCAA will manage the other sports, but football just,
could be its own thing.
yeah, it could do its own thing. Because,
Interesting.
yeah, because I mean, the transition committee for the NCAA just came out and said that, they are going to recommend that, all the, I call them Olympic sports, or all the equivalency sports. And, in the NCAA, each sport has a limit as to how many scholarships you can give, or they're going to make the recommendation that the equivalency sports no longer have any limit as the number of scholarships you can have, or the number of coaches that you can have. So for the ETSUs of the world, we have one of the preeminent golf programs in the
Hmm.
country. But what will that do? Because you can only have 4.5 golfers on 4.5 scholarships. So what will that happen to our golf program if Florida can have 15 golfers on
Right.
full scholarship, and Oklahoma State can have 14, whatever, you know what I mean? And they can have 4 coaches. They can have a putting coach, shipping coach, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So they can just throw as
psychological.
much
Yeah,
money at it as
yeah,
possible. So
nutrition
I
and
think
all.
that's where ETSU is kind of, right there in the crossroads of where they're going to go, how they're going to go there, and kind of
Are
try and
you?
figure it all out.
Is there a way for you to get on some of the NCAA committees? Or are you already on there, kind of helping make some of these, like throwing the other side of the coin argument out there?
No, I'm not now. I was on back in the day when I was at BCU. I was in the championships cabinet, and
Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny right now that I just saw that the Knight Commission is the way the NCAA, basically the NCAA is about their only revenue generator basketball tournament.
Gotcha.
All the other championships barely make money. There's only 3 NCAA championships that make money, and that's men's basketball, baseball, and wrestling and hockey make a little bit. So
Interesting.
some years wrestling does, some years hockey does, but none of the other sports make any money. They all cost money. So the way the NCAA the money that they have, they redistribute back to the member institutions, and one of the big ways to do it is the way you generate money is by wins in the NCAA tournament. So you basically, the conference that you're in, for every win that you get in the NCAA tournament, you get about $300,000 over 6 years. So the least anybody will get is $1.8 million a year.
Nice.
But you can imagine some of these teams, every game that you play, you get 300,000. So
Yeah,
you can
building.
imagine the Big Ten, who has 9 teams in the tournament. So, figure those numbers out. So
Yeah.
that gets to be pretty big numbers. So
Yeah.
they
can't lose really. If
Right,
either team wins or
yeah,
loses,
yeah.
they're still making 300.
Right. So, that they may have what are called units. So some conferences only have 6 units. Some conferences will have 50 units. So you multiply that times 300,000 and that's what you get. So they just came out and said, well, why the schools need to get money based upon also the women's tournament and wins in the women's tournament, but the women's tournament doesn't make any money. The women's tournament loses money.
So how do you pay?
Yeah, so you're paying.
You're just spending money. You're stealing it from Paul to pay Peter.
Right. And I think that's where the thing gets. And I understand Title IX. I think you ought to invest and give everybody opportunity to compete. But the reality of it is, no business in the world would operate like this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That
Yes.
the ones making all the money is not the one that you're going to try to elevate. You know what I mean? And so, but that's where we are right now. So there's so many issues
There's
out
a
there.
lot going on, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there really is.
And I guess it's one of those where it looks like, 5 years from now, maybe we do it to ourselves and it kind of implodes and they have to start over and figure it out.
Oh, I think there's going to be some dramatic changes. I just don't know. And then the NCAA is talking to Congress to start to regulate college athletics, and I scratch my head on that one because you would think Congress has enough issues going on rather than fool with regulating college sports. Plus, I'm not totally convinced they do a great job regulating anything. You know what I mean? So
right.
I think they
don't need to add anything to their plate.
Right. I think they got bigger fish to fry than deciding whether the quarterback at Alabama should get $1 million or 1.2
Isn't that
million.
crazy?
Yeah, it is.
It's like, do your job, people.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, speaking of cash and money, you're raising dollars. What are you doing? Tell me. Twan said you're shooting free throws. But...
Yeah, I am. Thanks for asking.
Of course.
Yeah. So, now that I have a little more time than I used to, my grandson was born with a severe birth defect where within the first 24 hours of birth, he had to have surgery to save his life. And then the condition that he had required probably, I don't know how many more, 3, 4, 5 subsequent surgeries. We knew that. And so while the surgeries have mitigated his condition, they can't cure it. So he has some issues. And what became so apparent to me is when you have a child born with a birth defect, it really changes the life path of the family, because now, you worry about your child constantly. You have to, with Finn, his name's Finnegan. So Finnegan has therapy all the time. He has, it's just so different. You know what I mean? When you have a child with that. And as we started looking at it, we found 1 in 33 children in the USA are born with a birth defect. So as you talk to people who have a child with birth defect, there's a lot of challenges that face them. So to bring attention to the fact that, 1 in 33 children are born with a birth defect, what I want to do is start a charity and to raise money for it, to bring attention to it. What I did on November 4th, I wanted to see how many free throws I could make in 24 consecutive hours.
Oh, wow.
So I did.
How many did you get?
And I made 3,956. My goal was to make 3,300.
So
and,
we smoked that. Good job.
Yeah. So we asked people to, give a dime, a nickel, a penny, $1 for every free throw that I made. So we did that. And that was good. We raised about $150,000. Charles Barkley gave us 25,000, so
That's
that was pretty
awesome.
cool. Yeah, and
Good for
then
you.
I didn't want this to go away,
Sure.
so I said, okay, on December 15th, I'm going to shoot free throws for 6 months. Finnegan, um, his birthday is June 15th. So in 6 months, I'm going to make 33,000 free throws. So every
Nice.
day I shoot free throws. That winds up being, I need to make about 175 a day to get there. So right now I've got about a month to go and I've got less than 5,000 to make. So yeah, so some days I can't make very many, but I try to make at least one every day. And some days I think the most I've made since December, I think I made 1,018 one day because I had time to do it. And
That's cool.
so yeah, so that, and so we do that. And what we're doing, we're doing research on trying to find commonalities of coping skills for families of children with birth defects. So working with the Strong Brain Institute at ETSU and Ballard, we're doing that research. Dr. Kimberly Hale, who is the director of early childhood learning and development at ETSU, is doing research. So one of the things she's doing, she interviews families and then looks for commonalities. And it's kind of a small pilot research project now. So we're doing that.
That's
and then
cool.
the other thing, working with, the instructional design people, a woman named Dr. Chelsea Dubé at ETSU, we're designing curriculum for teachers to help them deal with the peers of children born with birth defects.
Yeah.
Because while they may have some instruction of how to deal with those kids, quite often, kids can be, they can be pretty mean, I guess, to a kid who's different. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And so we really feel it's important that teachers have the ability to help those kids, those peers of these kids, to understand those kids are no different and create empathy for that
Sure.
child.
And they're a heartbeat away from being that
Yeah,
kid.
exactly.
By God's grace alone,
Yeah, yeah,
they're healthy and the other kid's not,
yeah.
and it's just it's just fate.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. So we're building this
That's cool.
program. And so, yeah, so we have a curriculum developed and we've got the first 3 or 4 modules and we're going to get that out here. And then we're going to continue to do something. And then the last thing that we're developing in conjunction with the curriculum, we're going to develop a social media platform for those families. And so one of the things we're finding out in the research is that, if people can kind of share their story and
Sure.
feel that they're helping somebody else, it's almost cathartic for them
Yeah.
to be able to do that. So we are creating that also. So that's what we're using the money
Is there
for.
any like sibling therapy or help as well?
Yeah,
'Cause,
and
I
that's
mean,
so that's what that's one of the things that we're looking at.
because I think that would probably be under, like you've got one kid who needs constant care and the other one may get left out,
Right.
and how do you integrate him into the care and all that? And,
Exactly. That's one of the
yeah.
things we're finding out very
Does Finnegan
clearly.
have any siblings?
He does. So
Yeah.
Finnegan's got a little sister named Fontaine, and so
Aw.
so Finn's 7, Fontaine's 5, and yeah, she's great though. She understands him, and she's his biggest supporter
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
defender and everything else. So it's kind of neat.
Those the only 2 grandkids for you?
I have that's my son's 2 kids. My daughter has a son, and he's 17.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so he's doing good.
A little different spectrum there.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, he's doing good. He's going into his senior year in high school.
Is he coming to ETSU?
He loves ETSU because he comes up. He used to come up here in the summer and go to basketball camp and hang out. He and President Nolan has a son who's 17, so they've gotten to be good friends. I live right there next to President Nolan. So
is that where you're still living?
Yeah, I still live in the guest house, so they take care of me. So
that's pretty good.
I need somebody to take care of me. But yeah, so
keep you in the style you're accustomed to.
Yeah, exactly.
Over there on Shellbridge's grounds. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I lived around the corner on 9th Avenue
Okay.
For years, and so when you were, I'd play basketball and all that fun stuff over there. So good spot.
Yep.
Okay, how can anything I didn't ask you that I should have?
No, just if anybody wants to do anything to help us with Finnegan's Challenge, they
Yeah.
can go to our website, finneganschallenge.org, and
You
look
on
at and see what
Instagram and
we're
all
doing.
that too? And
Mhm.
you on Instagram and Facebook?
We are, yep.
Okay.
So yeah,
Finnegan's
we are,
Challenge.
and
We'll
we're
look that up.
actually we're really we just kind of retained a group to help us with social media marketing, and I think we're going to start getting more out there on
Well,
Instagram and
yeah.
Twitter, and who knows, I
We'll
might
help support
become
however we can.
I may become a TikTok star. Who knows?
I think that you could be an influencer. I think. Sounds like you already are an influencer. How can our listeners connect with you? What's the best way to get? If you had a question for Dr.
just
Sander?
email me.
Yeah.
Sander@etsu.edu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And also, you like to play a little golf, I hear. So
Yeah,
that's
not
good.
very well though, unfortunately. Unfortunately,
People coming into the area, what's your favorite golf course around?
well, my favorite course. I think that's a good question. I like the Virginian. I
Mhm.
think it's a really good course. I think it's a pretty traditional course, and
It is pretty.
very pretty, and it's a uh, nice place to play
Hmm.
and get away from everything a little
There
bit.
you go. Turn the
Yep,
phone off and just go play some golf.
yep. That's what I
Um,
try to do every once in a
I
while.
have a speed round, but you're not a coffee guy. I was going to say black coffee or fancy, but you're a no coffee.
No coffee, and never had a
But
drop
you'll
in my
drink it.
life.
But you'll drink a Diet Coke.
Yeah, I don't know why. When I was a kid, I guess my parents drank it, and I don't know. It just looked like dirty water to me. I'm going, why are people drinking dirty water? So I never got that out of my head.
I love it. Where do you and your wife go to get a burger?
Mm, well, you know, I'm kind of a Five Guys deal. I like Five
Yeah,
Guys.
that's
Yeah,
a good one.
yeah, I do.
We call
Yeah,
that heart attack in a sack.
yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Pizza. Where's your favorite pizza joint?
Um, my favorite pizza joint. Um, uh, I like all pizza.
Yeah, I haven't met one I
Yeah,
haven't
I've never.
really
Yeah,
liked.
exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we try them all.
Well, if you guys, what's your wife's name?
Mary.
Mary. How
Mhm.
long have you guys been married?
50. We got married in 1968. So however long that is.
Oh wow,
54 years.
attaboy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's great. Yep.
Date night for you and Mary.
Uh, just main thing is just being with the kids, the grandkids. That's the best thing we can do.
Yeah,
Finn and Fontaine or Jack
that's awesome.
come over. Yeah, that's the best thing we can
That's
do.
the best date night ever. Yeah,
Yep,
cool.
really is.
Well, thank you for coming in. Thanks for spending some time with us. Thank you, listeners, for listening. I really enjoyed getting to hang out with you. It's been a pleasure for sure.
Well,
So,
thanks. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
yeah, until next time, I'm Colin Johnson with the Colin and Carly Group and Keller Williams Realty. If you want to sell your home or make a move to Johnson City, I'm here to help. If you want to help out Finnegan's Challenge, we're going to have the link down below in the podcast notes, and then we'll also have it on the social medias as well to help out Dr. Sander and his grandkids. I think that's an awesome venture that you're stepping into and way to help out. So, and then come support ETSU, come to the basketball games, football games, track, tennis, golf. We've got it all. We're killing it at all of them. So, and then pray that the guys win the national championship in golf this year.
Yeah,
They're right there now.
They are
going
yep.
after it. So,
Yep, yes, sir.
yeah. Thanks again. Have a
Thanks,
great day.
Colin.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Appreciate